Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC 286 Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman 3 is almost here, and I am really looking forward to this fight card. There are so many reasons I am looking forward to UFC 286, but this video is going to be the top 3 reasons I love UFC 286. I'm going to start with honorable mentions, then I'm going to go from 3 to 1, 1 being the reason I most love UFC 286 and the reason I am most looking forward to this fight card. Now, before I get into any of that, do me a favor, go check out the fight card for UFC 286 and then comment down below some reasons that you love UFC 286 before even hearing my opinion. Also, I've already done a video, the top 3 reasons I hate UFC 286. I will link that down in the description as well as the end cards if you want to go check it out after this. And I'll be doing a bunch of UFC 286 prediction videos, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of those videos. Now, starting off with the honorable mentions. One of these almost didn't even end up in the video. The other one almost ended up on the actual list. So starting off with the one I debated about including in the video, and that is that Muhammad Makayev is fighting on the prelims of UFC 286. I think he is a very promising flyweight contender. He is undefeated in MMA. He had a decent step up in competition in his last fight against Malcolm Gordon. He finished him in the 3rd round via submission. And I think this is a young fighter, a young prospect who I think it's worth keeping your eye on because I believe he's so young right now. I think in the next 2 to 3 years, he will be a contender in the flyweight division, maybe even sooner. And I think there's a real possibility that he could be fighting for a title in the next few years. And I think he's just so skilled, but we haven't really seen him test it yet. And we're not seeing him go against some massive talent at UFC 286. But I think it's still worth to keep an eye on him just to see, how he moves along in his UFC career, because I think the UFC is kind of building him up. They know that he is so young. They are building him up, and I think he has a really bright future, and I think he is worth keeping an eye on the UFC 286 prelims. Now, the other honorable mention. Now, this is the one that almost made the list, and this is kind of a combination of reasons. And the honorable mention is that Jack Shore is making his featherweight debut. He is fighting Makwan Amirkhani. And I'm really excited to see Jack Shore at featherweight because he was a prospect at bantamweight. I think at even one point he was ranked like number 14, number 15 in the bantamweight rankings, which is one of the most stacked divisions in the UFC, if not the most stacked. And a lot of people thought he's going to be a future title contender at bantamweight. He's going to be a future champion at bantamweight. Some people even thought that. And after his last fight, he lost to Ricky Simone. He decided that he is moving up to 145. And I'm genuinely curious to see how he's going to look at this new weight class. So I thought that was worth an honorable mention. But the reason I put it in here, and this is the bigger reason, and this is the reason it almost ended up on my top 3 list, is because Jack Shore is taking on Makwan Amirkhani, and I think Jack Shore is going to TKO Makwan Amirkhani. And the reason I'm so excited for that, and the reason I love that, is because I hate Makwan Amirkhani for what he did to Mike Grundy, and I think I need to see some more retribution. Because for those of you who don't know, Mike Grundy fought Makwan Amirkhani last year on the Volkov-Aspinall card, and Mike Grundy brought his terminally ill father to the event. And Makwan Amirkhani finished him in under a minute, I believe it was. And then the UFC cut Mike Grundy after that performance. And I know this is not Makwan Amirkhani's fault at all, but for some reason I hold it against him. And he got TKO'd in his last fight against Jonathan Pierce, and I thought that might be enough. But no, I need to see him get finished again. For what he did to Mike Grundy, we need revenge for that. And that honestly ruined that entire card for me. And it made me super depressed. And I felt for Mike Grundy. And then the UFC cuts him from the organization. And I know, what can Amirkhani do? What's he supposed to do? Let Mike Grundy win? No, he's not supposed to. And I understand this is a kind of a weird reason, but I need to see some retribution taken out in Mike Grundy's name. And I think Jack Shore, with his skill set, will be able to go out there and stop Makwan Amirkhani. So that's why I'm really looking forward to this fight. And this fight is also on the prelims. Now, moving on to the number 3 reason I love UFC 286, and that is because we are getting Roman Dolize versus Marvin Vettori. And the reason is more the story of Roman Dolize, because Roman Dolize was an unranked contender literally less than 6 months ago. Less than 6 months ago, he was coming off a win over Phil Hawes, which is kind of meaningful, but didn't really mean a whole lot. And then he stepped in December of 2022 to take on Jack Hermansson after Derek Brunson pulled out. And he went out there and in the second round made Jack Hermansson look like an absolute baby and finished him via TKO. And it was a phenomenal performance on short notice against a top 10 ranked guy. And now all of a sudden, Roman Dolize is in a position where he's on a 4-fight win streak. And now he's taking on the number 4 ranked guy in the division, Marvin Vettori. This is a phenomenal matchup. Marvin Vettori, so durable, so well-rounded himself. And Roman Dolize goes from unranked contender to now, if he defeats Marvin Vettori, he is on a short list of title contenders. That is an incredible story. And this is an incredible fight. Roman Dolize looks like an absolute killer. Super well-rounded, very good on the ground, great ground and pound, good KO power, KO'd Phil Hawes, KO'd Kyle Dawkins, which I know Kyle Dawkins, it doesn't really mean much KOing him. He's no longer in the UFC. But Roman Dolize has gone from unranked to potential title contender. And the Marvin Vettori fight, I think, should be incredible. I think Marvin Vettori is the real test for Roman Dolize. Jack Hermansson is a great fighter, don't get me wrong. He's a very good fighter. But he's never really been close to a title. He's never been close to a number 1 contender. Marvin Vettori has fought for the belt against Israel Adesanya. He lost. He fought Robert Whittaker in his last fight. He lost, but Robert Whittaker, without Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker is probably dominating the middleweight division. And Marvin Vettori is so good, and I can't wait to really get a gauge on how good Roman Dolize is. So I'm really looking forward to this matchup. I think it has title implications, at least on the side of Roman Dolize. But you never know. Marvin Vettori, if Alex Pereira is able to defeat Adesanya in the rematch, Alex Pereira hasn't fought a lot of the contenders at middleweight. Now, it's going to be a debate whether or not he moves up. But for Marvin Vettori, if he goes out there and stops Roman Dolize, he could be in that title discussion as long as Israel Adesanya doesn't regain his title at UFC 287. So this is an elite level matchup. This is a matchup that has title implications. And this is also a matchup where we're going to get a lot of answers about Roman Dolize and his skill set. This is a massive test for him against Marvin Vettori. Now moving on to the number 2 reason I am excited for UFC 286. And that is because Justin Gaethje accepted the fight with Rafael Fiziev. There was talk for a long time. The top of the lightweight division, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, they're not fighting the up-and-coming killers like Fiziev, like Saryukian, like Gamrot. But now we are getting this fight. There was talk that Gaethje may not take this fight. And he was kind of saying, I want to fight this guy or that guy. Or, he just did not want to fight these up-and-coming guys. But I thought ultimately Justin Gaethje would take this fight. And he did. And Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev is an amazing matchup. Rafael Fiziev is an elite level striker. Justin Gaethje is an elite level striker. Justin Gaethje is never in a boring fight. Every single fight that he's in. I've been watching him since the World Series of Fighting days, and he is never in a boring fight. He is one of the most exciting fighters I've ever seen. He may be the most exciting fighter in MMA. Even his last fight against Charles Oliveira only lasted 1 round. Super exciting. The fight against Michael Chandler, amazingly exciting. I mean, the first 2 rounds in that fight were incredible. The fight against Tony Ferguson, it was kind of a dominant win for him, but it was relatively exciting and action-packed as well. And Justin Gaethje is one of the funnest fighters to watch step in the octagon. And I think this is a phenomenal style clash because Rafael Fiziev is an elite level striker that's on his way up in the division. But now he's getting a really, really tough test against Justin Gaethje, who is ranked in the top 5. And for so many years, I've been crying about the welterweight division, and none of the welterweight, top 5 wants to fight anyone behind them. And it started to feel like that in the lightweight division. It felt like, Justin Gaethje doesn't want to fight any up-and-coming guys. Well, we are getting that in this fight. We are going to find out how good Rafael Fiziev is because Justin Gaethje is still an elite-level fighter who has amazing leg kicks, amazing striking, knockout power. And there is no way either one of these guys shoots for a takedown. So I'm really looking forward to Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. I think there is no way that it's a boring fight. And depending on how long it lasts, this could be fight of the year. And that's how much I am looking forward to that fight, because it is just such a compelling matchup. And it's going to be one of those stories. Can the young eat the old? Can the up-and-coming contender in Rafael Fiziev go out there and starch Justin Gaethje? A lot of people are counting Justin Gaethje out in this fight. So I'm very curious to see how this fight plays out. I'm very curious how their striking matches up with each other, because Justin Gaethje's kind of a wild brawler power puncher who's kind of dialed it back over the past year or two. And then you have Rafael Fiziev, who's just super technical, went out there in his last fight and KO'd Rafael dos Anjos in the 5th round. Incredible performance. But Rafael dos Anjos kind of in the decline. Justin Gaethje, you could kind of say the same thing. He's coming off a loss, but he was in a title fight against Charles Oliveira. His 2 losses in the recent memory are to Khabib Nurmagomedov and Charles Oliveira. Not too bad losses to have. So I'm very interested in this fight, and I think it is going to be one of the best fights on UFC 286. Moving on to my number 1 reason that I love UFC 286, and that is the Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman 3 storyline. For me, there is nothing more compelling than having a dominant champion lose their title and then come back to try to regain that title. Now, you can add multiple layers onto this because, that makes it exciting in itself. You have Anderson Silva, who went out there and got knocked out by Chris Weidman. I believe it was in the 2nd round back at UFC 162. They made the rematch for 168, and that was an incredible storyline going into that rematch. But you add the layer to it that Kamaru Usman was winning the majority of the fight. It was about to go to decision. And in the last minute of the fight, Leon Edwards lands a perfectly placed head kick and brutally KOs Kamaru Usman to snatch away the welterweight title. That just sells itself, in my opinion. So many people were like, oh, I want to see these guys push and shove each other at a press conference, or, jump over the cage at the Ultimate Fighter house, and they're going to put it on different episodes and hype up the fight like Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. For me, there's nothing more fascinating than a real, genuine story. And that's what we have here. We have Leon Edwards, who everyone counted out even going into the fight. And then you get to the 5th round, you get to the last minute. There's nobody that thought Leon Edwards could pull that off. And he goes out there against a dominant champion in Kamaru Usman and brutally KOs him. Oh my goodness, the way Kamaru Usman fell, it was the stuff of nightmares. And what an inspiring performance by Leon Edwards. And now you have Kamaru Usman, who is getting up there in age, who just lost his title, who just got KO'd for the first time. He has to come back to go into enemy territory in the O2 Arena in the UK to try to get his belt back from Leon Edwards. What a compelling storyline that is. I am really looking forward to this main event. And then you add another layer to it. Oh, well, they're both elite level fighters. And then you add another layer to it. It's grappler versus striker. And I know Kamaru Usman did very well on the feet last time, but that's because of his grappling. And then you have the storyline where Leon Edwards is saying, well, because of high altitude, his cardio was sapped in that 2nd fight. And then you add on to the fact they fought all the way back in 2015. So this is the trilogy. So this fight has so many layers. It's such a compelling storyline. And I get it. Some of you guys like when Conor McGregor's just manufacturing drama with other fighters, and that makes you look forward to a card. And he's screaming at press conferences. But for me, you take 2 elite level fighters, and then you take one that was winning the majority of the fight, and then he gets KO'd, finished in the last minute of the 5th round. And now, after all these years of being champion, he has to come back and go to this guy's backyard and try to get his belt back. That is so compelling to me. And both of these guys are elite level fighters. This is an amazing storyline. And that is why I love UFC 286. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Are any of my reasons wrong? Should the list be in a different order? Did I miss any reasons that should have been on this list? Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. And thank you so much for watching.